Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar, How to Talk to Your Family About Surrogacy for Surrogates. Thank you to everyone who is joining us today. We will be taking questions and answering them live, so I ask that if you do have any questions for our speakers, to please send them to us using our questions tool. We're just going to wait one more minute for a few more attendees to join us. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce who we have here with us today. We have Leia Swanberg, founder and CEO of Canadian Fertility Consulting. Leia is a mother to 5 and a 2-time gestational surrogate and a 6-time egg donor. She began Canadian Fertility Consulting in 2007 after her second surrogacy, with the intention of creating a more rewarding surrogacy experience for intended parents and surrogates. With a background in business development and management, Leia turned her personal passion for alternative family building into a full-time business. We also have our in-house counselor, Jan Silverman. She has worked in the field of reproductive health for the past 28 years, supporting, educating, and advocating on behalf of women and men struggling with issues of infertility. She headed a program at the Women's College Hospital and has consulted at the Crete Clinic for the past 9 years. She was selected as one of the 11 experts that worked on the expert panel on infertility and adoption in 2008. As an infertile woman herself, Jan made her family through adoption. All right, well, let's get started. I'll ask Leia and Jan to join us now.
Hi, everyone. It is so fantastic to be speaking with you today. Just know that if you have to jump off to attend to kids or life, we're going to send you a recording of this, so you'll be able to catch up later. Having been a surrogate twice, the experiences for me were so profound and changed my life so deeply that I began CFC with a passion to really encourage and support women who were inspired by or interested in changing someone's life. And in turn, I can tell you, if you're new to surrogacy, not only will this change someone's life or someone's lives, it will also change yours, as it is just such a beautiful experience. One thing I will share is that having support, whether that's within your own family structure, whether that's friends, whether that's other surrogates who show up for you, it is so important throughout this process that you have people that you can lean on when necessary. And so being able to share with people, being able to tell them about your desire to help people become parents, is sometimes tough. It sometimes takes a little bit of practice. And so today I hope that Jan, who is an amazing dear friend and just a lover of surrogates, will be able to give you some professional advice. I will be able to share my experiences. My journeys were amazing, and I made choices around my journey in terms of my husband at the time was very involved initially. However, for me, I really wanted to birth alone with my intended parents and create that intimate space with them. And so really, from the beginning of your journey to the way your journey ends is about you and what you're comfortable with, what your intended parents are comfortable with, and how you build and grow that together. And so I'm really excited to have Jan here. She's going to do an initial talk, and then I've got a bunch of your questions, but if you have more questions, just add them in the chat box and we will answer them at the end. So welcome, Jan. Great to see you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak at this webinar today. And you're right, I love my surrogates, love them. More than that, I honor and respect them, because as I always say to them at some point when we meet, you're creating miracles. I mean, there's no other way to describe it than you are miracle makers, and that's extraordinary. So, talking to your family about surrogacy, I want to make a few comments before we kind of jump into some of the questions. Just a few preliminary questions. Now, as always, some of my answers you may look at and go, ooh, that might be an idea. Or you may look at it or listen to it and go, no, doesn't resonate with me. That's fine. Don't worry about that. I'm offering suggestions, but as I always tell my surrogates, I learn from you all the time. So usually my responses, although kind of rooted in research and studies, really comes from you because you become the experts on surrogacy, and I really honor and respect that component. So first of all, when we're thinking about how to talk, we have to think about who do we want to tell, and further to that, who do we have to tell? And the two things are not always the same. To me, who do you want to tell will be the people that will ultimately be there to support you. You know, you cannot go through a surrogacy. I'll suggest any kind of a pregnancy, but especially a surrogacy. You cannot go through a surrogacy on your own. So what you do have to build up is a community. Now, the magical thing about CFC is that they help you to create a surrogate community. Their sacred surrogacy program is extraordinary. And I don't just say that. Even if Leah wasn't here, I'd be saying that. Because nestled within CFC are all sorts of support networks. However, you need more than that. You need support in your house. You need support in your personal space, in your personal community. So the people you want to start off sharing, that you want to tell, you start with who's safe. You're going to tell the people that you know will start building your little, your nest, your community, I'm trying to think of the word and it's not coming to me. The people that you have to tell, though, are going to be the people whose reactions may have an impact on your children. And you're going to hear me go back to your children all the time, because as much as I want your intended parents to have that amazing baby, your family, be it a partner or not, but your children are the most important things right now. So we have to always make sure that we are taking their needs into consideration. So sometimes we have to tell people that we wouldn't necessarily want to tell, but if they're going to hear it, and if your children are going to hear something from them, I want them to hear it from you first of all. I don't know if that makes sense. I'll say that again. That sometimes there are people that you may not want to tell, like an ex-partner or ex-family members. But if they see your children on a regular basis, then we have to make sure they understand what you are doing so they can speak about it in a respectful, caring way so that your children will understand what is happening. I hope that made more sense this time. Second to that, I want you to remember that you didn't jump into surrogacy in a moment's notice. Most of you have given it quite a bit of thought. It's not unusual to hear, I first thought of it a couple years ago and I put it on a back burner, or I started thinking of it 6 months ago or a year ago, or even if I started thinking of it a month or two ago, once I started thinking of it, I did my research, I became informed, I talked to people at CFC, I became an informed consumer. Now, understand that for many of your family and friends, this may come out of left field. You're gonna do what? Because remember, they haven't been thinking about it. They haven't been privy at that point to the resources that you have. So remember that you have to respect that they're coming often from a very different place. And I'll tell you something, and I'm being honest, I have a daughter. If my daughter came to me and said, Mom, I'm going to be a surrogate, my first reaction would probably be, you're going to do what? Not that I wouldn't come around necessarily, but my first reaction is always going to be about concern, For my daughter, are you going to be okay? I'm going to need answers. So I need you to know sometimes they're not going to automatically jump on a bandwagon, because their first thought and their first concern is going to be, are you okay? So, and I'm sure you're all moms, you know this as well. So you know how important it is to know, to learn more, right? So we have to figure that out and be respectful of that. And then my language, and we're going to talk about this further as some of the questions come in, but I'm going to stress that when we talk about it openly, we talk about it honestly, and we talk about it with that joy which led you to move to surrogacy in the first place. Because people don't just hear words. They hear your body, they hear your face. They hear from me, you hear my hands moving all the time. But we have to be inclusive of all those other communication strategies. So if we're not feeling it and we're feeling, ooh, they're going to hear that. So we have to make sure that our language, when we talk about it, brings in those amazing components that reflect all the thinking and all the love that is going to guide you through this journey. And we're going to be careful about the language that we use. And we're going to choose words that will be honest and reflective of what a surrogacy journey is about and what it is not. Because misconceptions are all over the place. They abound. It's your egg. No, it's not my egg. How are you going to give the baby up? Well, we know, you know the language. We're not giving babies up. We're giving babies back. But people that have never thought of this before don't have the language. So we are going to start by using language in a way that expands other people's understanding and lets them into the world that we have thought about and explored and know is going to be an amazing life experience for us. And we're going to have people joining in with us on this amazing life experience. So just a few opening comments. Leah, did you want to add anything to that?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, having been a surrogate was an amazing experience. And I knew my kids knew that I was a surrogate, and, you know, we have spent time with the parents and their kids, and that's wonderful and lovely. But I didn't realize until my teenager wrote a paper for school for grade 11 science about my surrogacy, and it was really interesting to see her take on it, and to see how ultimately she was just so proud of the fact that our family had participated. And, you know, my adult children work within our company, and so obviously they're supporters as well. But for me, it was really important at the time I engaged as a surrogate that my family was complete. And I had 2 journeys that were wonderful. I subsequently remarried and subsequently had 2 more children. And so many of our surrogates come to us and they say, and one of the questions I got, and Jan, I'm going to ask you this question, you know, is I don't know that I have finished my family. I feel like I'm done. How will I know if it's a good time to be a surrogate? Should I be certain that I'm done having my own children? And for me, I was certain. Things changed. I now have 2 other kids. But Jan, how would you suggest, before a surrogate even say talks to her spouse or partner, how would you suggest reconciling for themselves so that they're very clear in how they present this?
Okay. And again, we have to understand that there's no one pat answer for everybody, because over the years, I've been privileged to speak to so many surrogates, and many of them are clear that they are not done with their own family, that they're taking a break, that it's not the right time for them to increase their family, and they will talk about a love for pregnancy, but they know that the timing is not right to have more children for them. And I think that that's fine. I think, though, that a lot of it has to do with the mindset that you walk into the surrogacy journey with. You know, many surrogates will describe to me that they have to put themselves in that place where they will recognize that the baby that they are going to be growing is not their baby. Now, we all know that intellectually. It's not your egg, it's not your partner's sperm. If you have a male partner, it's not yours, but you're lovely, loving, compassionate women. So it's hard to separate sometimes. Of course, you're going to love the baby. But I think it's knowing yourself and whether you have the ability and capacity to compartmentalize. Are you able in general to take something and box it and think, yeah, I am able to put this in a little box and say, I know that this is not my child. But I want to add, and again, this is going to sound like an advertisement for CFC, and I apologize for that. But one of the things that I love about CFC is that they recognize that this is not a walk in the park. No one expects you not to feel emotional about this. Again, you're loving, caring women. You connect often with this growing baby, right? I'm hoping you're all saying, of course I will. Of course I do, because that's what drove you partially to become a surrogate. So they support that. No one expects you not to sometimes be a little challenged. And you know what? There are people that may end and think, wow, that was a little more challenging than I thought it would be. Or, wow, that was a lot easier than I expected it to be. And the beauty is that there are supports provided. So if there is a need to talk about it afterwards, it's available. But I think it's kind of examining within yourself, how do I usually respond when I am challenged with something different? Some people can jump in and some people can't. And I think that it becomes, look at other things that you have done and think, is there a pattern that I'm able to figure out? Or speak to someone. Go speak to a counselor, speak to me, and let's explore a little bit whether you feel that this is the right time or not. But I will come back to that. For most people, when you have a baby, you want it to be your baby, if possible. You want it to be the baby between yourself and, if you're in a heterosexual couple, with the man that you want to be with. And if you're in a same-sex couple, then it's going to be with a donor that we together selected out of love. This is a baby that is selected because you are going to care and have compassion for somebody else, but it's not the same thing. Long answer to a short question.
No.
I apologize.
You know, and I often explain to intended parents in coaching calls that I have with them that, you know, the relationship that they build and vice versa that you build with your intended parents is the most intimate relationship. And I don't mean sexually or any other way. I mean intimate. It is so deep. And often you may begin as strangers. And so to build that relationship with boundaries and to have people that you can lean back on and that you can deconstruct, you know, how things are going and how things will go, and, you know, and someone that just has your back unconditionally is so important, because at the end of this journey, you know, we hope that relationships grow organically and you stay connected with your intended parents. But at the end of this journey, you will be going back to your families. And so having gone through a journey, whether easy, difficult, feeling impossible at times, knowing that you have those people and that soft place to land after is just vital, I really believe, to the success of any journey. Okay, Jan, I've got another question here for you. My husband isn't very on board with my decision to become a surrogate. However, surrogacy is something I've wanted to do for many years. How can I talk him into it?
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to suggest, and this is a challenging question, I'll be honest. So first of all, I'm going to have to say from the get-go that you can never talk somebody into something. You can't force someone to go someplace that they're not prepared to go. And I think we know that when we think, oh, I'm going to change somebody. You can't ever go into a relationship thinking you are going to have the ability to change them. But what you do have an ability to do is to kind of work with him, if possible, and figure out what are his concerns and honor those concerns. I use the word honor a lot. I think it's one of my favorite words, because very often people want to be heard. They don't want to be dismissed. Very often partners will say, I just don't, and I'm going to do it anyway. That's not honoring him. So I'm going to suggest that you start by, okay, I hear you. Let's see if we can figure out what are your areas of concern. You know, some of them may be misconceptions. Some of them may be things that he's didn't really understand what this process is about. And some of them may be valid. I had a surrogate yesterday who was describing, her husband was describing, he said she is always a bitch when she's pregnant. He said, she just wants me there to go out and do it. So he said, it's one thing when I'm doing it for us, and another thing knowing that we're not going to read. Well, we have to validate that. He was saying something that was honest, right? And we can work around that. And that's, maybe there are a few things that can go into a contract that can help with some of, that can help with some of those challenges, potentially. Maybe he's concerned about, we have to validate that. So don't go into it thinking that you're going to change his mind. Start with, I'm going to listen. I'm going to hear what he has to say and why he is saying this. Maybe he's afraid that he's not going to have your attention anymore. Maybe we have to build in, while you're going through your journey, that you have a date night regularly. Again, I'm picking at little things, but if we don't hear and figure out what the concerns are, then we can't find solutions, right?
Great
Leia,
answer.
do you have something to add to that?
I think it's really important. I know that for many of our surrogates, when we have this conversation, they talk about how much they've supported their partner in their career and, moved to different cities. And, many of our surrogates are military spouses, and they followed their partners around. And so they just want it to be their turn. And so I would encourage you to really share very openly and honestly with your partner, if you have a partner, or if this is a concern from your mom or somebody else, why this matters to you and how it would be so important to you for them to really show up for you, and how you plan to manage this process with young children, and how, if you are on bed rest, that will be taken care of, and to really reassure them. It's quite natural for a partner to be scared. Pregnancy is beautiful and amazing and all of these things, but there are inherent risks with pregnancy. And so having that research available and really sharing with them, look, statistically, we've had 3 kids, and and IVF pregnancies, while they may be, slightly a higher risk, here's what that looks like. And to really have information, because oftentimes people are just coming at this going, you want to what? Like, what do you mean? We have 3 kids. Like, we're too busy as it is to even say hello in the morning. Is this going to take away from our relationship? Is this going to, are these people over here going to become so important that you forget about our relationship? So definitely building in, honoring your partner, talking about how you will create intimacy should you end up on bed rest, how this may impact your your sexual relationship with your partner, how this may impact your relationship with your children if you were to become unwell, and to ensure that the agency that you're working with, whether it's CFC or another agency, that they know what you need, that they know what support looks like for you in your house, so that you can be certain when you go back to your partner or your mom or your family, your support people, hey, here's something I really want to do, and here's some information I'd love to give you about it, so that you really are, educating people around you. I will say this, I was once as a surrogate compared to an Amway salesperson who just alienated everyone because all I wanted to talk about was surrogacy. So I found myself a committed and connected group of women. Facebook wasn't really much of a thing. I don't even think it was in my life anyways. But I found women, actually not surrogates. I lived in Ottawa at the time, but I found a great group of women at like a mom's prenatal group that I could share with, so that I could save the best for my partner and the worst for those people. And I really balanced what I shared and with who, because I wanted to ensure that, during the process when I struggled with my own, depression or my own, anxieties around body image and, my sexual relationship with my partner at the time, that I had my people, that I could share that with honestly in a very different way, because there is nothing worse. And when you speak to surrogates who are currently in journeys, they will share this. There is nothing worse than sharing something about your journey with someone who doesn't get it, who says, well, you knew, like, you signed up for this, right? Like, this is what I warned you about. When I told you I had concerns, these are what those were. And so really finding out and spending some, time and reflection before you move forward to sort through what support looks like for you, how people can show up, and how an agency can support you as well in terms of childcare needs and coverage of expenses that you will need throughout the process, because it is really, I can tell you how beautiful surrogacy is, but I can also tell you that there are many women who have not reached out or not asked for the support that they really required, and it's really disappointing because it's there. Okay, Jan, my kids are 3 and 5. At what point should I talk to them about surrogacy, and how should I explain it?
Oh, beautiful question. Beautiful question. And again, tricky because each child is an individual as well. You can have 3-year-olds that, well, all 3-year-olds think they know everything, but some 3-year-olds can really comprehend a lot, and some 3-year-olds will be, huh? What are you talking about? But I believe no matter what, we have to talk to our children. And I think talking to children is really, 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 really important.
When? Before? During?
I will say again, when the children are young, what we have to remember is that children are not abstract thinkers. As adults, we're abstract thinkers, right? But children are concrete. So if you tell them that there is going to be a baby in your tummy that is not your baby, but you're helping somebody else, they're going to go, where's the baby? Can I see it now? Because they don't abstract information. So I usually suggest, if we're talking to very young children, that we wait until it's actually in there, but do a little bit of preparation beforehand, like when you're going through the process. So again, I love talking to kids about this. I think kids are remarkable because kids know how to just take it in and cool, like they're good about this by and large. But I think that it's important, several things are important to keep in mind in this. First of all, when we do talk to our children, again, we're going to talk openly, we are going to be honest, and we are going to use language that is appropriate for where they are at in time and space. All right? So don't dumb it down, but don't over sophisticate it. Talk to them about what is going to happen. I love the concept of we are going to be helping another family, not mommy and daddy, not mommy and mommy. We, our family is going to help make a family for somebody else. I love the idea of children feeling a sense of involvement. I always say that there are at least two tremendous things that children of any age can learn from this process. One, they learn that mommy is not just remarkable, which they already know, but mom is really remarkable because she doesn't just talk about helping other people. She is really going to be helping other people. And she, and by association, we are going to be helping other people. So the first thing they learn is that you really do good things for other people. And you know, this is such an amazing time to be talking about this because so much of this Corona period has been these incredible examples of people going out of the way to help one another. And I bet each one of you listening can think of, oh yeah, I asked my neighbor, or I spoke to someone, or I tried to. And we're just moving, I hope, into a society where the idea of actually helping and not just talking about it is going to come more and more of our reality. And the second amazing thing that kids get to learn at a very young age is that there is no one way to build a family. And I think that conceptually, that is so amazing. Families are not all made up of a mother, a father, and children. We can have two men. We can have two women. We can have one man. We can have stepchildren. We can have foster children. We can have children that are adopted. There are so many different permutations of what makes a family. And how amazing for kids to know that we are going to be helping to make a family in a little bit different way, but in a really good way, because there is no one way. Let's get out of a box that says this is what a family is supposed to look like. Families are not about where the sperm came from, where the egg came from, whose uterus it was in. Families are ultimately about loving a child to pieces and keeping them safe. Not enough to just love. You also have to protect them and make sure they're safe. So we do that by talking in language that we can, that we are going to help make a family for somebody else. Okay? And we do that by talking. We do that by the use of wonderful children's books that are out there that can talk about not just, well, they talk about all different ways of making a family. So the classic one is The Kangaroo Pouch, which is a wonderful book about a family of kangaroos that helps another family of kangaroos. There's another book for your same-sex couples called Milo's Adventures, which is a beautiful book, Canadian book about same-sex dads that are using a surrogate to help them. There's slew of books that talk about that. Get the couple of those. Once the libraries reopen, take your kids over to the library and take out books that explore some of these other amazing ways. Take a book out on adoption. Take a book out about I have two mommies. Take out different books. And then the other thing is, where possible, when you connect with some of your sorrow sisters, and unfortunately, we're not doing, the same kind of retreats right now and meetups. Hopefully that will happen soon enough. well, not soon enough, not soon, but hopefully it will be happening. But so many of you create some amazing relationships on Facebook, on the chat rooms. See if you can have your kids connect with some other kids whose mummies are also going to be surrogates. You know, we've learned some amazing things about networking, you know, like we're doing today. There are so many platforms. You can get a free Zoom account and talk all together for a few minutes. There are just wonderful ways, and nice for kids to talk to other kids, even when they're 3 and 5. They have feelings about that. The other thing I want to add about 3 and 5-year-olds is they have to be prepared and have answers, because when you walk through the streets, when we are not as socially isolated as we are right now, and when you have a little bun in that oven and someone goes up to your child and says, oh, you must be so excited about having another brother or sister. What do you hope? I want your kid to go, not our baby, we're helping somebody. But we have to give them that enthusiasm and the language to be able to answer all those people. And please, even if you tell them once, you're going to have to tell them a number of times, because if people come up to them and keep saying, oh, you're going to have a new brother or sister, and they're going to start thinking, maybe I am going to have a new brother or sister. So they have to be clear about that, which is why I always recommend make sure once things have moved forward that your children get a chance to meet the intended parents by Skype or whatever platform you're using. Let them see again, back to concrete. These are the people that we're going to be helping. So they have it in their head. And then further to that, and I know it's not popular, get a hard copy picture. Remember pictures? Get a hard copy picture of your intended parents and post it somewhere that reinforces to the chat, oh yeah, those are the people. Oh yeah. Have it out there on a regular basis so it's affirming in their heads. Yeah. So
That's great.
those.
That's great advice. Okay, next question. My husband has asked that I don't tell his parents that I'm acting as a surrogate. I'm 15 weeks pregnant and it's getting hard to hide it any longer. My children know, and I don't feel right about them keeping this secret. Please help.
Oh, I have to say I side on this. I understand, but I do side with your surrogate, because we want, as we were just talking about, we want the children to feel safe and comfortable talking about it. And by being asked to keep a secret is always challenging, because secrets are hard. Secrets make us think, why can't I? What's wrong? And then we worry, is there inherently something wrong with this? And why aren't we allowed to say it out loud? So again, it comes back to, we have to explore why the husband is concerned. Did you mention, was it for religious purposes?
She didn't mention, she didn't say.
I mean, sometimes we are surprised. I will very often hear a surrogate in an initial consultation say, oh, I can't talk about that with my mother or my mother-in-law. And then later on, they'll go, you know, I was shocked when I did tell them how much more supportive that they were about it. But I want to add that when you believe that you are doing something really extraordinary, which you are, and when you're doing something for good reasons, because you really do want to help someone to make a family, it should be that you can say this, I'm sorry, acknowledge again, validate again. I'm sorry if they don't approve. I'm sorry that you don't approve, but I really feel that it's important that we try to help other people, because all they really want is to have the joy that we have known, right? I mean, go back to your motivation for why you want to be a surrogate. And at least a chunk of it is because you want to see the joy that you have known by being a parent in someone else's face, reflected in someone else's face. And when you believe that, and you should be able to get that across to a partner as well. I mean, wow, doesn't her, hopefully your husband feels that same joy, that look how lucky we are. If anything comes through over and over, it's surrogates saying to me, I can't imagine my life without my children. I can't imagine what it must feel like to want a child and not be able to have one. And I'll tell you, I was one of those people that couldn't have children and wanted children more than anything in the world. And yes, the options that are available now weren't available in my time. But you meet those intended parents, bring him in on the conversation. Make sure your partner, if possible, gets to meet the IPs as well. Let them demystify what they're about. And again, the more comfortable everyone feels, the more comfortable hopefully he will feel. And when he feels comfortable, he's going to be able to say to his parents, this is an extraordinary journey that our family is taking off on. Again, I know these are strategies. You can look at me and go, no, it's not going to work. And then if that really doesn't work, then we have to kind of get your husband involved in this, and let's see if we can sit down and have a more extensive conversation about it.
And for those of you who are participating in this webinar, please know that your agency will have support for you in terms of, for us, it it's a great pleasure of having Jan, but agencies have support in place, and it's really important that if you sort of hit a roadblock where you're really you're at an impasse, right? That you bring in someone that is an expert in this field who can really help you guys work through it, because it is so imperative. As I said, these people are going to hang around for the next year, and yes, you're going to have a great relationship that likely goes on a long time after, but your spouse or partner, they are going to be your support when this is over. And so I really think it's important that you respect and value and sort through how you're going to manage this process as a family. I know for myself, there was a great distinction between secrecy and privacy. I was private about who my intended parents were. My children met them in person. My children knew them. My children knew their names. But they also knew that for us, it was important that we didn't maybe necessarily share details about them, because for us, it was important that, we respected their privacy. They were very private people. However, our journey, the fact that I was a surrogate, was never a secret. And so I think sort of looking at things as, privacy, respecting your own family's sort of privacy and values, and talking through with your kids, how amazing this is. I know for myself, when I reached around the 25-week mark, I reached out to my kid's teacher, just said, hey, here's a heads up, you're seeing me in the playground and I'm pregnant. If my daughter, who attended a Catholic school, tells you this is going on, just know, yeah, I'm a surrogate, it's cool. And if you see that my child has, anything coming up, because at that point I wasn't sure how she was going to manage her feelings, please let me know. And the teacher was really appreciative that I was super open with her about it, and that I was able to just kind of say, hey, here's what's going on in our family. Just as I would if I was pregnant with my own child, I would share information with the teacher, or I would share information with people in our lives, a Girl Scouts leader or whomever, because I wanted my child to be able to talk to people, and people in our life not kind of, what is going on with this 12-year-old telling me that her mom is a surrogate. Like, you know, and just to really allow people that catch up time before my kid is standing in front of them, you know, shifting foot to foot, telling them this crazy story about these people who live in Vancouver. You know, my mom's giving them the baby. You know, I wanted to really have a clear path on that. But Jan, I have one more question for you. It says, when should we talk to our parents if we suspect that they can get anxious? Should we wait a bit further to make sure everything is going forward? Should it be after screening, after contract, as soon as pregnant, or when we hit the 12-week pregnancy mark?
Again, I think we need a little bit more information, because again, I think it depends on what role the parents play in their lives. Like if they're in Vancouver and you're in Ontario and they're not seeing and they're not involved, then it might work to wait a little bit. As much
Right.
as I'm all about openness, if they are anxious people and they're not around to embrace and see that you're okay, that may enter into it. Because again, there's an abstract level that, remember that your parents mostly care, as I said earlier, they mostly care about you. They need to know that you are all right. So there's never one answer, but if they are involved on a regular basis with you and your family, if they live nearby or talk to you regularly, or if one of the kids is going to blurt it out, because we don't want to force a kid to keep, as Leah so wisely said, we don't want a kid to be forced to keep a secret, especially not from grandma and grandpa, right? But if it's not that kind of relationship, then, you know, nothing's wrong with waiting a little bit. You know, if we know they're anxious people, but don't let them be the last to know, because nothing's worse than not knowing when everybody in the world knows. And then it's like, kind of, why didn't you tell me? And also, don't assume that their anxiety means that they can't hear about this. Now, what I mean by that is that anxiety, as we all know, because we're all anxious, especially right now, you know, but it manifests in different ways, and it may be elicited by different reasons. If you know that they're going to be very worried about you, then yeah, you might hold off a little bit. But if you know that that it doesn't matter what it is, they're anxious about it, you know, use your knowledge of your family. But again, big thing is, don't leave them in the dark forever, because then it's just hurtful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jan, so much. And that was our last question. So I want to thank everyone that participated today. And if you have further questions, please send them through to us. We would love to put them up on our blog with some answers that both Jan and I, you know, we kind of share the same, I believe, values and thoughts on surrogates. And if you are watching this webinar and are considering surrogacy and would like to speak to someone about the process, let us know. I know that, you know, we are, as moms, as women, as people, we are givers. And, you know, I always am just so grateful for women who are willing to participate. And I can tell you that even if you are thinking about this and now is not the right time and we connect in 5 years, just by the fact that you are thinking about this says so much about you and who you are as an amazing giver in this world. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this webinar today, and we will hopefully talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.